Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice.
For the third year, Ceil DiGuglielmo of the So Much More podcast is joining me to review the year we've just had, what made it different, how we approached it, how we're going to approach moving forward, and lessons learned. Make sure to go back and listen to the last 2-year end recaps. They all have something to teach, and I hope you enjoyed this one.
Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice.
Hey, Ceil, I am so glad that we are doing our third joint podcast for the So Much More podcast and Profit is a Choice, where we jump in and talk all about goals and planning and what we're doing. And as we're wrapping up 2020, it's been quite a year, huh?
It sure has. When we were talking about should we do this, I was like, yes, I like a good tradition. This has been not only fun, but helpful to do it. But I don't think either of us anticipated the year that we have had. And I listened to our podcast from last year, and I had to chuckle a couple times because we were like, it's a new decade. Everything is fresh and new. I'm like, oh, that train's left the building.
That is funny. We all kind of started off this year, 2020, full of exuberance and this excitement. And yes. I don't know what it was, but there's something about, I think it being 2020, the beginning of or the end of the decade. I think some say it ends the decade and 2021 starts the new one. But for many people, it felt like this new beginning, this new plan. Everybody was planning. Our economy was in a good place. So everybody was planning that this was going to be the year that rocked their world.
Yes.
Right.
And it did. Just not the way they thought it was going to.
Thought it would. So let me ask you this. So I know that we talked about at the end of last year how we set our goals and some of the differences and what we looked at. We'll probably do some jumping around in this one, but I'm curious. March, I remember I saw you in March.
Yes.
In New Jersey.
Yes.
I had flown out to California for a meeting, and I flew from California directly to New Jersey. And I had not heard about like COVID getting ready to blow up the world.
Right.
No, or life as we knew it. And I remember coming into that meeting, and I don't even remember how many people were there, 25, 30 people.
Yeah, it was a well-attended meeting.
Yeah. And we're talking about profitability and pricing and all the things. I had no idea that was going to be the last time that I was able to kind of be, in air quotes, on stage,
right,
teaching and speaking to a room full of people, having intimate conversations, standing in front of them, connecting. I know we didn't hug that day. Everybody was doing the elbow bump.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Remember?
We were. Yeah.
I remember thinking, this is really odd, but if I can show up an elbow bump. I flew home, and that next Monday it shut down. We shut down.
That's right.
I want to say that was like March the 8th, 9th, 10th. And by the 16th,
you're right.
We were done. I had 1 week at home, and that's when it just started escalating. We had no idea. And don't you think that was true for a lot of people?
Oh, yes.
No, it was the last time you were going to get to like physically hug somebody for a while.
Right.
We didn't know it was the last time that we were going to see face to face, or that, I can't even tell you, I probably had to cancel so many speaking engagements and teaching opportunities this year in person because it just couldn't be done.
Same. Yeah. And it's at that moment in time, it's funny when I listening to the podcast and hearing you talk about that particular meeting, even though COVID was something we knew about, we didn't understand the impact it was going to have on us. So it was this
in a week's time frame, like in a tiny time frame.
Yes. But it was this blissful unawareness.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we talked a little bit when we were deciding what we would talk about in trying to find the gift in all of this. And look, there's a gift in just about everything. I won't say everything, but there were parts of this that allowed people to spend more time with their family, For some people that was good. For some people that was not so good. It allowed people to really take a look at some things and see if they needed to do some things differently. I tried to take as many lessons out of it as I possibly could, at the same time pivoting and making some changes. Do you feel like you needed some time to absorb it and figure out how to respond to it? Because your business consists primarily of helping business owners. So like, how did you take care of Michele before you were able to take care of everybody else?
Yeah. So I'm going to write down gift of 2020 because I want to come back to that.
Okay.
In a minute. Okay. So when it first shut down, I remember thinking, and you know this about me, I am very strategic. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a long-term thinker. I don't think short-term. And the minute it shut down and I started reading and investigating and like, what the heck is going on? I made the comment in my own home to my boys and to my husband. I mean, we only had, neither of our sons quarantined with us. One had bought a house in the fall, so he was certainly quarantining his own home. Our other son, we had a house for him 4 hours away from us, mm-hmm. and he had a 3-bedroom home by himself. So both my boys quarantined separate from us.
Okay.
It was hard.
Yeah. Our girls were not here either. They had both already moved out. So they weren't here.
Emotionally, that was very difficult because our son was finishing his senior year of college, mm-hmm. and he went to spring break and came back and all their buddies and all their friends were gone. They kind of like, we didn't know. Of course, they didn't know either.
Right.
They weren't going to see their friends again. So I think us all being separate was weighty for me. Mm-hmm. And when I started seeing what was happening, I told the boys, I said, I need you guys to plan for this to be like 12 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks. Mom, you're an alarmist. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. They said 2 weeks. I know what they said, boys, and I am telling you, I need you to have an 8, 10, 12-week plan. And so because I truly believed that was why I started building education immediately for my coaching mm-hmm. clients. And I started saying to them, okay, we need to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. I want to see your 4-week plan. I want to see an 8-week plan. I want to see a 12-week plan. You know, I had clients who came to me. I'm like, why are you doing that? I said, listen, even if we get out in 6 weeks, that's cool. This doesn't mean right. It's going to happen. It right. just means we need to plan for it. What if the money doesn't come in? What if we can't get work? What if we are at home? What if? Make some plans. And then you can feel kind of that freedom to just execute.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. And then I had clients call me back and say, I didn't want to hear what you were saying. Right. And neither did I. But I'm so thankful that you said it because it made me prepare differently. Mm-hmm. Thankful that you immediately went into Profit First. I mean, here's what I did to take care of me. I went into my bank account and started looking at everything. I went all the way back to my Profit First basics. What expenses do I need to cut? What do I need to do? Who do I need to keep? Who do I need to add? What do I need to do? Like, how can I do this? I also, you know this, and I've shared it before. I have multiple autoimmune diseases.
Right.
2 of them are the ones that, you know, with COVID, for example, are the ones that they say are basically main underlying causes of death, mm-hmm. right? Of diabetes type 1 and of asthma, you know, among other things. And so I knew that my health, it was imperative that I stay.
Yes.
Well, and my family rallied around. I mean, I wasn't allowed to go do anything. It was probably 2 months before I left my house, outside mm-hmm. of walking around my neighborhood, you know, being outside, to the point that I told somebody the other day, I said, it felt new, like to drive a car. I remember thinking, yes. Oh my gosh, what is that like? It's been so long since I've driven a car. I first started doing that. The second thing I started doing was I went through, I think, a mourning phase like everybody else, mm-hmm. mourning the way that we were able to do things and weren't able to do it. And so because of that, I did things like I made sure that if I felt overwhelmed at my desk, I got up and left. Mm-hmm. I went outside, I stretched, I did all my morning coffee on the back porch. Like, I started looking for other ways to take care of myself mentally and physically, because it was a mourning of what we couldn't do and what we had taken for granted. Or for me, I mean, if I speak personally, I had taken for granted that I could see somebody in person. I'd taken for granted. And I also don't think that I recognized how important human touch is to me.
Yes.
My son came over last night and I got to see him, and I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. And I've always said to the boys when I hugged them, I would say, I just got to fill my love tank up a little bit. It's running a little dry. And so I stood on my sofa so that I could be face to face with my son, because he's so much taller than me. Mm-hmm. I'm 5'3", he's about 6 feet. So I get up on the sofa and I stand up so that I can like give him a hug, shoulder to shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, I was hugging him really tight. And then I said to him, I said, I'm sorry, I just need a couple more minutes. I said, I kind of feel like my tank has been really empty. He said, so has mine, Mom. Aww. And so, but I miss that, I miss doing that with my mom and dad, or even my girlfriends, just being able. And so I think the fact that we were all in this together, Ceil, mm-hmm. I started immediately realizing how I needed to take care of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, so that then I could pour out. I mean, it kicked in pretty quick, but I'm not going to lie. It still feels like that March to maybe early June, March, April, kind of May. Mm-hmm. It feels foggy to me. It feels like almost like a cloud of mist over it.
Yes. I heard you describe it that way. And I thought that was an excellent way to describe it. And I felt like I kind of shut down a little bit. I was getting podcast information about how to deal with the pandemic. I was getting SCORE information. Like everywhere I turned, someone was telling me how to pivot and what to do. And that morning is the right idea. And I've lost enough people that I know what that morning process is like. But I just felt like I can't do anything just yet. I need to understand what's going on. And none of us did. Right. So there wasn't that opportunity to understand. But I also realized I needed to keep moving forward. Right. And so I made the conscious decision. My husband was still going into the office that he works in. He works in school photography. So schools were shut down, but they were asking for digital images so they could put together some kind of a yearbook. And some things had not been, they shut down so quickly that some things were not completed. So he was the only one in the building. So it was safe for him to be there. And he was able to get packages mailed out and email digital files and all that stuff. So in a lot of ways, every day was the same. He was going to work and I was working from home by myself, but we weren't seeing our daughters. I couldn't hug them. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't seeing my sisters. And I had a great deal of work in my workroom. So most days felt almost exactly the same, except they were so different. And I realized that for the members of the library, I needed to respond and I needed to help them with what they needed to do. So same thing, I took a little bit of time, but I decided I still got up every morning and did my miracle morning. I still exercised almost every day for 30 minutes because I felt like if I didn't, it would all start to fall apart.
Yeah, I had to lean into the rhythms of life that I had created. I think that's a good way to say it.
I agree.
Just leaned into the rhythms of life that I had created, and I just kept going. Listen, I've told you this before. There were times my clients needed me. They needed me. Mm-hmm. And I even sent out multiple emails at the beginning that said, I know you're being overwhelmed with information. So
I remember seeing them.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions, or I'm going to ask you 1 question and you answer with 1, 2, or 3. And I said, how are you? Number 1, like, I'm all good. Don't need anything.
Yes.
Number 2, I'm not even sure what I need, but I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. Or number 3, I need you. Like, I'm in a struggle. I need you. Even for clients that I had not signed up to have one-on-one calls with. And if they responded with a 3, I went back and forth through email. And if we needed to pick up the phone, we picked up the phone. Mm-hmm. I just said, this way you don't have to give a whole lot of information. Just, I'm good. I'm not even sure who I am right now, but I'll let you know. Right? Because there were times that's all that we could, that's as much as we had.
Right.
So I tried to do that. And then it's so interesting where some people were saying they had less work. I gave more during that time than had even been scheduled, because I started giving more about how to pivot, about how to check through your financials. I started talking about how to recession proof your company. All those things I started teaching immediately. They had been on my list, but they got fast forwarded from like middle of the year, second half of the year, all the way up to like in 3 months, kind of like, boom, let's get it out. We need it now. Let's do it now. A lot more check-ins, doing weekly calls where it was supposed to be bi-weekly calls. My workload greatly increased. The calls to work with me slowed down because people started hibernating and holding back.
Right.
But for those I was already serving, the service increased.
Right. And it's funny because I had work to do, and for about a week I was working, but I wasn't pushing myself because there was no end in sight. And when am I going to install these window treatments? So why am I rushing to do them? And then after I kind of settled into, I need a good routine every day, I realized that the sooner I was done, the more I could look forward to the time when I would be able to install, rather than dread, oh no, the pandemic, the lockdown is ending and I don't have my work done.
Exactly. And that's what was hard. We didn't know when it was going to end, relax, whatever, so that we could move about. And it was varied across the country.
Yes.
And so I will say this, as far as going through that time, it shifted, I think, for every business. Some got busier, some were less busy. We all were looking at our marketing. We were all looking at our financials. We were all starting to go back into some of those foundations of business ownership. I had people going back through my courses again, saying, let me shore that up. I've got a little more time. Let me look at it.
Right.
Difficult because it wasn't something that anybody had ever had gone through, not even around us. Nobody, everybody was supposing what was going to happen, but nobody had actual, well, here's what we've done and here's how we made it. And
there was no history.
There's no track record.
Exactly.
None. But you know what? I do want to touch on, before we jump into the next piece, the gift of 2020. You mentioned quite a few of them. And at my retreat for my elite clients, a couple of years ago, we wrote down all the things. This is part of our end of the year, I guess, celebration. 2 years ago, all my elite clients, we wrote down all the things we wanted to get out of our life, remove limiting beliefs, all that. And we tore it up into small paper and went through the act of ripping it into shreds and threw it away. This year at my retreat, we took flash paper and wrote everything on flash paper and set it on fire.
Oh, nice.
And let it flash away. And then we turned around as a group of entrepreneurs and said, now what we want to do, we've let all that go. Now what we want to do is we want to share the gift of 2020. And, 2020, when we think about it bringing focus and clarity. I have 2020 vision. And we also hear about it from the way of saying hindsight is 2020.
Yes.
And so we were looking at it as, here we are at the end of 2020. What does the hindsight of 2020 look like? Yeah. And the comments that went around were things like, as difficult as this year has been for many of us in a multitude of ways, right? We're not even just talking business. We're talking friendships,
personal,
relationships, economy. We're talking losing people that we cared about for not just for COVID, but for other health issues. It's just, I wouldn't say this has been an easy year for most people, for almost anybody. It would almost be an anomaly, right? It's just been.
I agree. That would be an anomaly.
It's been a challenge.
Yeah.
But what could we learn in the challenge? Just like a diamond is formed from pressure. What is it that we learned? And there were comments similar to yours, Ceil, about, I realized I want more time with my family. Or I realized how precious friendships are. Or it was the gift of being able to learn to communicate in a different way, the gift of understanding other people and their ideas and what they're doing, because we had time to build kind of community even through Zoom. I mean, we were like, well, we're thankful for Zoom. Right. And just that I had some say, I decided I wanted to close up my office that's out of my home and move it back into my home. Or just all of those things. Somewhere I realized what I really love to do in my business. I realized where I want to focus. Right. And so I do think it's been a tough year and a rough year in many ways, but it's been a blessing in a lot of ways, or blessings have come out of it in a lot of ways that maybe we couldn't see. But you have to look for those things, because sometimes the horribleness can can overwhelm. But
yes,
we've got designers and workrooms, not saying this is everybody in all parts of the country, but some of them have more work than they have ever had. And it started picking up in July. I mean, not even waiting till August, September, but it's almost like the minute things open, they've been talking about it feeling like the Christmas rush, as we always call it, in June, July, and August.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you talk about like knowing the things you want to do in your business. And I had made a decision with my SCORE advisors, because I'm running the library, that I needed to not say yes to every single window treatment job that came into my business, because I'm not trying, she's making faces at me for those of you who are listening. I'm not trying to grow that part of my business. I'm not ready to let go of it, but I'm not trying to grow it. And it took, yes, I set that as a goal. I said it to you, but then I was still saying yes. So I wasn't honoring that decision. And the amount of work that I had through the pandemic, including a very large whole house job, which was for a friend. So it wasn't a to the trade job. Everything was well balanced time-wise. And it's the first time I'd say last year I did fairly well, but I was still adjusting to owning the library last year. And I realized that this was closer to how I wanted to feel. And that, yes, I know I had fewer jobs because of the pandemic, but the gift is, okay, now I know what it feels like without ever having saying no. Now I have to start saying no. And I have said it a couple times recently, and again, gracious and thankful. I'm so glad you thought of me. That's not the kind of work I do, especially if it was retail work. Or I had a designer reach out to me with a job that is just so far beyond my capabilities. I just said, oh no, I can't do that, but I have 3 people I can recommend to you. And those are the things that a year ago, I don't know if I would have been capable of saying, Michele, and I don't know if I would have been able to say no to. So that in itself was a gift. But one of the things I was really grateful for this year was things seemed to come in at the right time, and not all at once, and not, being piled on. And even now, as we approach the holidays, I have jobs that I'm working on, but I'll have 2 people talk to me about a job, but then the hardware doesn't come in for a job. So I just work on the other one, right, and then start the next one. And I feel like that's been, there's been less hurrying for me this year. Yeah. So that has made me feel better. Not happy for the reason, but it's made me recognize, oh, that's how I want to feel. This is a pace that's
good for me. Yes. Right. And at the end of last year, I had done some restructuring in my business to make sure that my offerings were in alignment with what I wanted to do and my values moving forward. And all I remember thinking during all of this was, I am so glad that I did that work, because I have the capacity, because I had created capacity to focus on what I want to focus on, the way I want to do it, serve the people that I'm serving the way I want to serve them. And it was a relief.
Right.
Because I was able to do that. And then now when we're a little bit past, and, who knows what things are getting ready to look like, because we're in the middle of moving into this whole winter season, deep in January, February, it's on the horizon. And those are usually still heavy flu and all that.
Right.
But I just know that here we are at the end of the year, and I still feel good about what I did and how I did it.
Yes.
And I love the people that I work with. Like, I'm probably like the most blessed coach in the world, and I say that. I know everybody feels that way, and that's fantastic. But when you are in alignment with what you do and how you do it and the values, it brings things into focus. And because we had some extra time at home, I was able to put out more education and more things because I wasn't traveling. So all that time that would have been sucked up on my calendar for, the day before and the day after of any event, I now had that time at home, and I was able to actually crank out more than I even had on my list for this year. Right. So my goals from the year before, I've gotten everything done. I don't have anything left that I didn't get done.
Oh, great.
The can that I told you I was going to kick down the road.
Yes.
Well, that was the Pricing Without Emotion course.
And you've put that out now. Congratulations.
Now. Right. That course had been kicked down the road, and I picked that can up and took care of it.
Yeah.
But I am excited about that, but I had to shift. I moved things around.
Yeah.
I didn't do them when I thought I was going to do them. I had to allow flexibility in the calendar. That was different, not as structured as I had thought that it would be.
Right.
That wasn't the way the world worked.
So first of all, congratulations, because I know that was a can that got kicked a few times.
Yeah.
And doesn't that take a weight off of you? I know you're a little better about setting things aside, but it was still out there because it was still something you wanted to achieve.
Well, I love that course. That course is life-changing. I mean, if anybody listens to yours, it probably comes up at least,
oh my gosh,
3 out of 4 podcasts.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's life-changing and business-changing, and I know it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been teaching it for 10 years now.
Congratulations. That's awesome. I think about the number of people who have been impacted by that.
It's thousands, and that is amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've, up until this point, it's always been in person, 2 days, 16 hours experiential course.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, you've had guests on. Many people, designers and workrooms, took it over and over and over.
Yeah, I took it twice myself.
And so I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a part of me that wanted to be so careful in how I put it out in an online way.
Yeah.
Because I know the results that can come from it. And we all know that teaching in an online manner is different.
Yes.
Teaching in person, and me standing over your shoulder and helping you do the math in your way and what you're looking at is different.
Yes.
Imparting something about your mindset, completely different when I'm not looking at you and you know what I mean? It's just different. And so I just wanted to honor it. That was the thing that kept me from putting it online.
Yeah.
How do I do this in such a way that I can honor that?
Because the personal one-on-one parts of it, or even when you're in a class and someone asks a question that either maybe you hadn't thought of or you were embarrassed to ask, adds to the value of the class. And
Correct.
So all of those things I know you struggled with in getting it together for an online platform.
But COVID took all that away, because that means it cannot be taught like that.
Right.
For the foreseeable future. So if I wanted to get it out, now was the time to do it.
Right.
And so anyway, it's been a huge relief off of me to be able to have it and to support people and to do that.
Okay.
And so I would say that if I were just looking at how my goals were, I got all of my big goals done for 2020, but it was not always in the quarter that I thought. I'm a big follower of the 12-week year. And
I just finished reading that book, Michele.
Well,
and
if you've done my goal setting, it's based on the 12-week year, because choose 3 to 4. I mean, look, I could quote you book after book after book. Traction, The Great Game of Business. All of them are going to tell you no more than 2 to 3 big goals a year. I mean, really big goals, because you cannot get them all done. It's too much, and run your company and do all the things you do. And so, I love the fact that I knew what my 2 to 3 big goals were. And then I was able to just move them around which quarter. And that's what I thought was cool. Every quarter I could evaluate what's the next big thing I really need to do that's going to move the dial and push my business forward. That's the next big thing that needs to be done. And then all of my energy and attention got focused there.
Okay. So what else are you proud of from 2020? Besides launching the Pricing Without Emotion course?
Yeah, I am proud of a couple of things. I'm proud of being able to support my clients during what I think was one of the most difficult times collectively in business. I support my clients through difficult things all the time. Like I mean, it's
why some of them come to you, because they're having difficulties. So
correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I carry a lot of weight with what I do. Things like I have, over my multitude of years doing this, 7, 8, 9 years, I have a lot of people come to me that are either going through a divorce or need to divorce, and they need to make sure they're financially stable. Well, that's weighty. I've got people that are forming partnerships, dissolving partnerships. weighty.
Yeah.
We've got people that are trying to take care of their families and they need the finances of the company to support them. That's weighty. Mm-hmm. But when you have every single client, like all of us do, going through all of this and their business foundations are just quivering.
Right.
That's a different kind of weight. So I'm very proud that I was able to get through that. I'm proud that I was able to support them with a financial understanding and a calmness that says, here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. How do we manage it? How do we pivot? How do we, and I know people are sick of that word, but it's true. How do we get around it? How do we take care of ourselves? And so I'm just thankful that my clients are still with me and I'm still with them. Mm-hmm. And that we're all on this side of it. We may have more to go through, but we now have a bit of a track record for what we can go through.
Right, right.
And then the next big thing that I would say that I am super proud of is I was able to get my Aim with Intent, which is my signature scalability program. I was able to get that fully online and launched to support the coaching that I do to help businesses scale. It's pretty amazing to have all of the education built to do everything that you need to do.
Right.
And then you feel like you have the freedom to just do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not dependent on whether or not you can travel. And it's not dependent.
Right.
While all of that is, we hope to get back to that, we can't right now. And so therefore, this is a way. Yeah. And for now, and I've said that a couple times to friends and children for now, because if I keep thinking it's really long-term, then I can't handle the weight of it for myself. So if I'm trying to help other people get through it, like for now, or this is where we are today.
Yeah.
Let's deal with this today.
Right.
But I also think that, the online event that you had for Aim with Intent was
I'm
it
proud of that too.
You should be. It showed your resilience. It was supposed to be an in-person event, and
a 2-day workshop event.
I think that there were things that went online that shouldn't have. I'm not even speaking in our industry, just a couple of things that I saw and went like, yeah, that didn't work. There were people who chose not to move forward and postpone till next year. And I support that and think it was the right choice for those events. And I was really looking forward to that 2-day event. And it was interesting because after how many months of not having any travel or anything like that, it was like I had 2 days blocked out and I knew where I was going to be and what I was doing. And it was a great event. And I learned a great deal from it, but there was also a sense of normalcy, even though it was all on Zoom. There was still something about it, like people sitting and having their yogurt while we were listening and we could see each other. It just, it felt like a connection.
So you're right. So one of the things that I did when for my coaching clients in the inner circle, we have a 2-day workshop. That's part of what you get when you coach with me. And I told you all, like we all did have some Zoom fatigue. It was October. Yeah. And so I said, I wanted it to be a workshop. You could walk, there's going to be a short teaching and then we're going to work. And so you're going to see 40, 50 people on the screen and we're all going to be working. And which means you can ask a question, your kid can come in. It is going to be like we are sitting, working in a space. And then I wanted to make it, normally when you go to those events, you get a swag bag. And
we got a swag box in the mail ahead of time.
The swag box in the mail. And I had them all stacked up. And that was fun for me to get to find another way to pull it off, to give the information that I needed my clients to get so that you would be successful. And I think that has been another lesson this year is how do I think critically about everything? And yes, this is the way I've done it in the past, or yes, this is the way we would love for it to be done. But if it's not possible, what and how can we deliver so that you get what you need? And so that has created a creative and critical thinking differently than I think maybe what some of us had before. We're all thinking that. How do I deliver these window treatments when I can't install them? How do I deliver a design if I can't come physically into your space? And so out of that challenge, I think it has offered many of us an opportunity to just even rethink what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done, what processes need to be kept, what processes need to change.
Right.
And we wouldn't have taken the time to do that before.
And we talk about, being tired of certain words, and the word pivot was not just in our industry, not just from you and I, but everywhere. What I was often amazed by was the resiliency that people had and the ability to say, okay, these are the facts. I have to do something. Mm-hmm. And we talked before we started, I'm trying to be more careful about saying things like, I don't have time. I'm the only one who decides how my time is actually used. I don't have to answer the phone when that person calls me. I can say no to, can you be here and do this? I choose how I spend my time. And so I'm trying to take a little more personal responsibility for that. But there were quite a few times when I felt like, I don't know what to do next. And I would see what other people were doing and just be so in awe of their ability to stop on a dime, gather the facts around them, and make a decision and go on. And I tried to learn from that instead of allowing it to slow me down even more by saying, oh, why didn't I think of that? Oh, they're really great. I'm not. I just kind of looked around and went, okay, this is what people need right now.
Right. This is what my people need right now.
Exactly.
Because, just like you
focusing
said,
on that.
Yeah. Other conferences made different decisions.
Yes.
And that what it really comes down to for each of us, I believe, is how are we best serving those whom we're meant to serve?
Yes.
And your people may need to be served differently than the people that I engage with at whatever point in time.
Yeah.
And I think creating that freedom for us to respond and to consider and to think without judgment of how anybody else is doing it.
Exactly.
Has really been a good thing for this past year. I know I've been doing podcasts now. This podcast is wrapping up. I started the podcast back in November, and I've done 3 podcasts on pre-planning, and then the first phase of planning and second phase of planning for the end of the year. And I've been doing it with Inner Circle, and we're also doing it with my elite group. And I've been thinking about what are some things, we always talk about start with gratitude, which is, we've done some of that, but really thinking, what are the lessons from 2020 that I now want to use going forward into 2021? Like, how do I not waste that clarity, that 2020 vision? Right. How do I not waste those opportunities and lessons learned into 2021? And a couple of things. One is, I got to tell you, and I know that you feel this way as well, how happy I am that I do profit first. Like,
yes,
I oh my stinking goodness.
Yep.
It gave me such a sense of being able to take a deep breath in 2020.
Yes. Same for me.
And my clients, I cannot even tell you, not even just those that are in my program right now, but those that I've worked with in the past. I got email after email after email after email that just said, thank you for helping me do this, because otherwise I would be in deep trouble right now. I'd be in trouble, or even more trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be able to survive this because I planned for the rainy day. Now, it may not be the way I'd planned to spend the rainy day, but I got it to spend if I need to have it. And so
exactly.
I want to encourage everybody moving into 2021. It's not too late to start saying, how do I now create some profit first habits that will help my business and sustain me.
And you mentioned gratitude, and that's actually one of the things that I'm proud of for this year. I often see like Facebook challenges and 30-day challenges and these different challenges. And it's just not really my thing. But one of the podcasts that I like to listen to, the Unmistakable Creative, he was doing 100-day challenge.
Okay.
And I alluded to this in one of my podcasts. I'm really glad that I don't engage in the community, because it's just one more place to look and read. And I can't do it. But I saw his challenge, And instantly with no hesitation, I was like, I need to start a 100-day gratitude challenge. And I'm really glad that I didn't participate in the group, because I went once to look for something and I saw people were writing books and they were starting these like great philanthropic projects. And I was like, oh, and I picked a gratitude project. But here's the thing. It is what I needed. And so I disengaged from that group and I started, and I have written down at least 3 things every day. That's how I start my day. 3 things that I'm grateful for. Most evenings, I also write something down, but I'm not as consistent with that, nor was that part of the challenge. I wanted to write down 3 things every day. And it has forced me to, because I can't write the same thing down. So I can't every day say I'm grateful for my cup of coffee. That's lame and I can't do it. But I have really searched and looked for and acknowledged things that I might not have otherwise. Mm-hmm. I also realized what it did for my mental health. Yeah. And we've talked about Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. And I realized that it has changed my mindset. That I have been a very optimistic person most of the time anyway, but now I see things even more clearly in terms of what about this is a lesson and what can I be grateful for.
Are you going to carry that into 2020?
I am. I decided, so I know this is a shock to everyone. I'm a perfectionist. And my first thought was, okay, how am I going to do this gratitude journal? And do I have to have a special book? And do I have to? And I immediately stopped myself. I found talk about swag bags, one of the hardware companies. It's a little notebook. I just picked it up and I started, and I didn't stop to think about for the pages. Because I know everybody thinks I'm all into paperless. I'm not. I love a beautiful pen and nice writing paper. It's not even good quality, Michele. It's just, I just got it started. And so I realized today, because I do journal on a regular basis, as I start 2021, I'm just going to make that part of my journaling. And just because I have 2 books right now. But I'm really proud of the fact that I followed through on it, that I didn't
get going.
And I didn't allow for anything to interrupt from it, that I made sure I was doing it.
That's awesome. So for 2021, I would say my goals are actually, I don't have any huge goal. Well, I've got one really big goal, but I'm not sure about when that one will happen or what it will do. But my goals for 2021 are more of refinement.
Oh, okay.
My goals are refining. It's going back and refining and updating what I've already done. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we think that our goals have to be these ginormous, huge. Mine's more about going in and editing and culling and adding to and just refining from what I know and what I've learned. Mm-hmm. My other goal is probably more around just the intention of relationships. I care about people. Like, I just care about people. Mm-hmm. So finding space and time to continue to connect with my clients, with my friends, with my family. We're getting ready to have a wedding in 2021. My son's getting married to just a lovely, lovely girl, and connecting families through that, and who knows what that's going to look like with all that's going on. And mm-hmm. I think just really being intentional about relationships and refining things that feels right to me, more so mm-hmm. than I've got this big build. I mean, I'm certainly working on a book. That's my really, really big mm-hmm. thing. But it's going to be a very different book. When I'm ready to tell you all about it, I'll share. But it's still being
and maybe different from what you had thought it would be a year ago.
It's different than what I thought it would be a year ago. It's actually different than what I thought it would be multiple years ago.
Okay.
But I think that I think going through the time that we went through in COVID, and for me, having some things stripped away and finding out what's most important for me, for my heart, has somewhat shifted the book, but in the best possible way. Mm-hmm. And so now that I've gotten aim with intent out of my brain, I've gotten pricing without emotion out of my brain. I feel like
there's
for
room.
The first time in years, I feel like, I know it's going to scare a lot of people who really know me, but I feel like I've got some space in my brain.
You're right. That's scary, Michele.
I know my brain's weird. I got it. I had somebody tell me yesterday, she's like, you really are a unicorn with finances, but you're a unicorn in a whole lot of other ways.
Exactly.
And then she followed it up with like 3 to 5 hearts. And so I knew she meant it.
Yeah.
But I actually feel like I have space in my brain, and it's been a long time since I felt like I had that space to kind of dream and create, because I had so many things in there. I couldn't wait to get out.
Right.
So
yeah, it does. And it's interesting because, we've joked about our processes are really different. And you had said last year, you start your major planning this time of the year so that January 1st, you're not waking up and saying, oh, what are my goals for this year that has already started? And we all know that I'm more of the latter, like, oh, look, it's January 1st. What am I doing? So I have already started some of my goals for next year a little more clearly.
Rubbing off on you.
I know. Marketing is something I've been working on through most of the year. I'm going to be changing some things in the library and making it more accessible, and there's more content going into the library. So that's really been my focus. And like you said, opening up some space in my brain and not having quite as many window treatments to make is allowing for that. And it's been interesting to me to watch people in our industry make changes in their businesses long before COVID, but the business that we have today doesn't have to be the same business that we have 5 years from now. And you've said that many times, but it's when you're making a decision to let go of one part to move into something else, it can be really stressful and sad so I'm not letting go of the window treatments, but I am doing less of them. And that opening up of space in my workday and my brain has allowed me to really feel excited about the changes that I'm going to be making to the library. So that's, I don't have a date yet for the new website, but it will start in phases.
Okay.
And we'll slowly bring things over from the old library into this library. So that's been, I've been focusing on things I had no knowledge about. And I have someone creating my website as opposed to building my own for my window treatment business. So it's all of that's been really exciting. And again, if it hadn't been for Profit First, I wouldn't have had that money set aside to do it. Right. And, there's a little period of time where I'm going to have 2 websites operating at the same time as we transition everything. And I have the money to do that. So those are all things that, geez, Michele, I think 5 years ago, if you had told me that, I would have said, yeah, I don't think so. Ceil's not that organized or that much of a business person. But I
remember that Ceil.
You do?
I remember who that Ceil was.
Yeah. So I heard something on a podcast the other day. Do something today that future, and they use their own name, but like do something today that future Ceil will be proud of you for. And I feel like that's been more of my mode of operation over the last couple of years than it was in the past. And so being organized enough to even think about 2021 after this debacle of a year is that, again, it just feels more relaxed.
Yeah. I feel like, I think 2020, I'm a planner, I'm an organizer, I'm an achiever, I'm a maximizer. Like I know who I am. And I think 2020 taught me to some degree, and probably many of us, to hold things lightly.
Yes.
So yes, do your planning. Yes, do your organizing. Manage what you can manage, but you can't control everything. That was one of my big lessons that I learned as a diabetic. I cannot control everything. I am insulin dependent. I can eat the same food on day 1 and day 2, and my body can react differently. It's just the way that happens. Yeah. So while I can't control it, I can manage it.
Right.
I can do things to lessen the impact. I can have some management over it. And I think that I had to apply that to my year because I couldn't control certain things, but I could manage them.
Yeah.
And so it highlighted for me the difference between control and manage, if that. if that makes sense.
It does. And it kind of feeds into what I talk about a lot, is the respond versus react.
Yeah.
And as for our listeners who are parents, from the minute that baby is placed in our arms, we do start to recognize how little in this world we can control, but it doesn't stop us from trying to control things.
Right.
And I do think that has been another gift of 2020, is that I have been better able to say, all right, well, that's not something I have any control over. What can I manage? What piece of this can I have an effect on? And letting go of things and holding them a little more lightly is a great way to explain it, because there were just
like planning with open hands.
Yes. And there were just things that I would start them and say, yep, that's not going to work for this year. Or, interviewing people for the podcast. I've hit now 4 years of podcasting.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And there are times when it's really hard to get people to commit to a time because their lives are in such upheaval.
Right.
And after a while I recognize, okay, I can't control that either.
Right.
And instead of stressing about it, finding new ways to either find different things to talk about and doing a different kind of podcast, or getting things scheduled even more ahead of time than I normally do. So yeah, I think that's been a big part of it, is the whether you like the word pivot or not, we've all had to do it. And I think it speaks to all of our resiliency and how much we have taken a breath and said, okay, what part of this can I manage? And how do I respond to this instead of reacting?
All right. Next question for you. Do you have any regrets from 2020?
Oh, that's a good one, Michele. Yes. In the beginning, because I was busy with window treatments and I heard people were bored and not knowing what to do with themselves, I was a little bit jealous of that. Now that's a little twisted, so please
I understand
that. But I didn't have time to bake sourdough bread or start a new Instagram account or any of that. And I let it bother me a little bit. I got over it, and I realized that I was really, really fortunate to have work to do that was keeping my mind and my hands busy. But I wish I had learned a little sooner that I could let go of a few things and take a little more time for myself. I'm still not, I'm better at self-care than I ever have been, but I didn't do as much of it as I think I should have. I think sometimes I went full steam ahead when I should have taken a breath.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you have anything you regret?
I don't feel like I have anything that I regret as much as maybe I wish that just overall I had appreciated time with people. I did appreciate it.
Yes.
But I almost wish that I had gone a little slower to absorb a little more of the in-person time that I had, or to make sure that my brain was so 1000% engaged
in the moment. Yeah.
In that moment. And it wasn't that I wasn't there and wasn't engaged, but I think because I miss that so much.
Yes.
I wish that I had, just really just hugging my kids, I wish I had just, I guess it's this 2020 is a good reminder that we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Yes.
It's a good reminder that you need to be prepared. It's a good reminder that in a split moment, all of your life can be rocked. We all know this intellectually, but I think 2020 moved that from my head to my heart in a way that I wasn't expecting, without any massive tragedy happening. Because a lot of times that moves from your head to your heart with your own personal massive tragedy.
Yeah, like the loss of a loved one,
or something catastrophic. And this was catastrophic for many. So I'm not underplay that. And you and I lost a very dear friend this year.
Yes.
In the middle of all this. and had another dear friend in the hospital with COVID. So, we've had some of that, but I think collectively as a world, we were all suffering from the catastrophe at the same time.
Yes.
And I think that put such a feeling of, I wish I had known what was important at the depth that it was important to me prior to. I don't know if I could have. I don't know how I would have responded differently. So I don't know that I really call it a regret, but I call it a heck of a reminder.
Yes.
That for me, it is, I talk profit on here all the time, but I talk profitability. I talk conscious capitalism. Like, it's okay to make money, but make it in the right way, do the right stuff with it. But I got to tell you, for me, it's people over profit. People over profit, always. Even when we designed and decorated our home, the rule was, if our dads could not come in here and put their feet up on the coffee table and felt like they were more important than the items we put in our house, we did it wrong.
Exactly.
Like, I want people to know they matter to me. And so I think it's brought just a super clear perspective on that for me.
Yeah. I think that's when anyone who's listening who has lost someone that they love recognizes that you have those feelings afterwards of, I wish I had known, especially if it's something that happens suddenly. And you realize how, like you said, on a dime, your life can change. But I think that, as you said, when we went through it collectively, it had a different impact on us than an individual loss.
Like when we talk about, you feel like the world stops turning. I feel like it stopped for everybody.
Yes. And here's the thing, Michele, I saw some really wonderful responses from all of this. There's a gentleman in my local community Facebook group who puts a post on every morning that it's kind, it's funny. He puts a movie quote in every single one, and he often does grammar lessons. U''RE versus YOUR, or I should say YOU''RE versus YOUR. ITS versus IT''S.
Yeah.
And he's very witty and very funny. And I appreciate his posts every day.
Yeah.
And I think I was reading them for 3 weeks before I responded to one, because I don't know him personally. He's just on a community group. And I thought, Ceil, you should let him know that he makes a difference in your day.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that I hope I do more of now.
Right. In the middle of it, I won't say in the middle, maybe more towards the beginning of it, I felt very prompted to keep my head and my heart in alignment with where I wanted to be in my belief system. And so I moved in to writing a daily prayer on Facebook.
Yes, you did.
I started a Facebook group called Prayer and Business, I think is what it is, or
Faith and Business.
Yeah. And I just put out there, here's a worship song that I'm listening to, or here's how I'm trying to flood my mind with truth and peace and calm and good and kind, so that I can respond with all those things. Because if I don't pour that into myself, that won't be what comes out.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So that Facebook group, Faith and Business, and the sharing of other people in there about what they were doing to kind of go back to some of the basics of faith, and during a time like that, it was a huge inspiration for me, but it also gave me something that I felt like I could hold on to when everything around me felt like it was shifting under my feet.
Exactly. And if that's not the most important lesson that we learned, that
it's going to shift.
Yeah, it is going to shift. That's it. First and foremost, whatever has happened, this too shall pass, good, bad, or indifferent. This too shall pass. And that we have some choices.
Yeah.
And one of them is, what am I going to do with all this?
Yep.
And we can sit back and say, oh no, oh no, oh no, or the sky is falling, or we can say, okay, how can I serve the people that I care about? Who can I be there for? And how can I take care of myself in the process?
My thing is, how do I make the world a better place? How do I help men and women transform their life and their business in a way that they can support themselves and their families? And what does it look like in the long run? That's where my heart is and what I care about, as opposed to a quick win or a quick marketing scheme,
right?
Or a quick anything. Those things don't, that's not the impact that I hope to have. Let me ask you one last question as we wrap up. What do you hope and dream for 2021? We talked about what we regretted.
Okay.
You know, we've talked about our goals, but what would you say you had? Do you have a hope or a dream for 2021 for you collectively? Anything? World peace. You come out acting like we're going to be.
It's my Miss America moment.
Your Miss America moment. World peace.
You know, we're laughing about it, Michele, but it is absolutely true. It's a proverb. No, not a proverb. A little thing that I've seen over and over again. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. And that means to myself, that means to the people I love. It means to people who are irritating the crap out of me on Facebook because I don't agree with them about something.
Right.
And I have worked on being accepting of people who are different from me, because this is, as we said earlier, the lens through which I see things. But to actually be kind is really not that difficult. And we are not always all kind. And I think that if we can find a little bit more kindness towards each other and understanding that we don't know half of what's going on. I mean, you joke about your brain, but we're good friends. I still don't know everything you're going through on a daily basis. And when we come together in a Zoom meeting or a call, I don't know if you just had a fight with Joel or if, your dog is sick or any of that. And we might get to that in the conversation, but we might not. And my hope for 2021 is that we can be as kind as possible to ourselves and to each other.
I love that. I would say mine is, and I mentioned this to you, and it kind of leads to the same place, but I love that saying, seek first to understand,
yes,
and be understood. And my hope is that we can learn to understand why others do what they do, think what they think, behave like they behave, buy like they buy, right? All the things, personal and business, then to be understood for how we see things, back to the lens that we put on. I think sometimes it's so easy to jump to a quick judgment, whether it's in business or in politics or in the world or in your family or in relationships, instead of taking that step back. And because you know what it requires? It requires you to be quiet, and it requires you to take an investment of time to hear and to engage. And I really feel like if we would all, in business and in life, listen and hold space and engage, we would understand with that kindness.
Right.
And I feel like things would be different. So I would really love to work on myself in a way of making sure that I seek first to understand and then be understood.
And I think it's interesting, Michele.
I can't wait on other people to go do it. Darn it. I got to start myself. Right?
Exactly. And that was exactly where I was going with it. One of my biggest expectations of myself is to expect the same thing from myself that I expect from others.
Yeah.
And expect it from me. And really it's expected from me, and not worry about what others are doing, because I can't expect other people.
But I would hope it'd be catching.
I would hope so too. Kindness and understanding. But I agree with you. If I can understand where someone else is coming from, it's a lot easier to be kind to them than to just have snap judgments and blow off some comments on social media or something like that. So I like how both of those are intertwined. I really
Or just
do.
to assume the worst, that client didn't call me back, therefore they must hate this. And you don't know that they just dropped a gallon of milk on the floor and they got to clean it. I mean,
exactly.
It's the same
exactly.
thing. So Ceil, where are you hanging out? People can find you today.
Well, I am on Facebook. I put more effort into the So Much More podcast Facebook group. I am working on the new library website. Hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll have a link to give you for that. And I hope to have a whole lot more engagement on that than we have in the past. And Instagram. Instagram, I use more my business, which is at Ceil D. So how about you? Where are you hanging out, Michele?
So hanging out on, of course, Facebook and Instagram, Pinterest, and my website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll each share the links to each other's hangouts
Sounds
on
good.
this. Michele, I'm so glad we decided to do this again. By the time this comes out, it will be the end of the year, and I'm sure some things will have changed from the time we recorded till it comes out. But I think the one thing is consistent, that wanting the best for the people that we serve is really what our goal is. And so I hope that listening to the podcast was helpful for people.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely our heartbeat. And that's why our values and our visions are aligned in that way. And it makes it so nice every year just to catch up, to see where we are and where we're going and the different ways that we approach it. And I think that gives a freedom to those listening to approach it their own way, right? And
exactly.
I think there's only one way to do it.
Exactly. What does Elke say? There's at least 3 ways to get to Rome.
That's exactly right.
So here's hoping next year we get to go somewhere.
Because we were supposed to go to Italy for our 30th wedding anniversary this year. And then when it became like one of the first hot spots, we're like, well, that's not happening.
So fingers crossed for that for 2021.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you for your time today, Ceil. I really appreciate hanging out with you.
I did too, Michele. Thank you.
It's always fun and sometimes enlightening for sure to look back. But with 2020 hindsight comes a clarity that we didn't have on the other side. Hiring a business coach can give you that kind of clarity. I love to see patterns and choices and to share that knowledge with my clients, which brings more clarity, confidence, and control to their business. If you want to talk about how this is possible for you and your business, go to scarletthreadconsulting.com and sign up for a discovery call. Choose to be profitable because profit doesn't happen by accident.